Excuse me, I have two vehicles outside that need to be moved. One is a Dodge, license plate number VFC96, a gray Dodge. We need that access to that space where you're parked. And the other vehicle is a Chev BHT 3301. If you could move these vehicles as soon as possible, that would be greatly appreciated. Thank you. We need to make room for our youth activities that are taking place there. Thank you.
Test. Test.
Okay, folks, 1 minute warning. We're going to get started. Also, can Irene Berlin come to the stage? Irene Berlin, come to the stage, please.
Marilyn? Marilyn, are you around? Good morning. Good morning, everyone.
I know we're running a little bit late, so I'd like to begin. If anybody's out there can hear us, we're going to start in 1 minute. 1 minute. See you soon. Okay, we're going just about ready to start. Is there a Paul Boudre? Paul Boudre? We have a bag we found, and it does have identification in it. So Paul Boudre, if you're here. If not, we will make sure that we leave it. Marilyn, where are we leaving it? Where will we leave it for him? We'll leave it at the... Paul, I just give it away to some lady. No. Thanks a lot, Ivy. Okay. Okay? Okay. Good morning. Welcome again. I would like to call this meeting to order, and it's 10:28. And for the record, we have our recorder, Joanne Gunville. Joanne, can you just wave? Joanne has taken minutes for us for many years, so Joanne, thank you for being here. And we do have a quorum. We actually have recorded right now 358 members in attendance. I also would like to acknowledge, as was requested last year with a special resolution, to appoint a Cree translator. We have a Cree translator in attendance. We have Irene Berlin. Irene, identify yourself. If someone wants something translated, she will be the lady. Thank you, Irene. I would like to make an announcement on the appointment of our Sergeant at Arms, and that is Chuck Isaac. Chuck, identify yourself there. That's our Sergeant of Arms, if we need anyone to do anything, but thank you, Chuck. Okay, and I think other than that, we had our official opening out at the UFO landing pad. Wasn't that awesome? I thought it was. So we're going to go right into the business of our meeting now. And my responsibility is to have you do the election for a chair and a vice chair. So I am going to, as of right now, open the floor for nominations for chair for this assembly. I think we have some mics out there. If anyone wants to nominate someone for chair, please go to the mic and let's make it happen. Whoops, I hear something somewhere. Where are we?
Audrey.
Right over there? So please just identify yourself and who you're nominating.
My name is Ken Browning from Region 6. I nominate Bruce Gladio as chair.
Okay, we have a nomination for Bruce Gladio. Do we have a second?
I second that.
Who is where?
I can't.
I can't see, I'm so blind. Over here? Who's doing that? Go ahead.
Gail Gallup
Okay.
seconds that motion.
Gail Gallup seconds the nomination for Bruce. Thank you, Gail. Do we have any other nominations? Do we have any other nominations? Those lights are so bright I can't see, so if you're at the mic, please yell. Are there any other nominations? For the last time, are there any other nominations?
I call question to the nomination, ma'am.
Okay, we have a motion to cease nominations. Do we have a seconder? Oh, your name, please? Who called to cease nominations? We need a name. Who moved? I heard, but I can't see. Okay, can I have a mover to cease nominations? We need a name. Somebody's pointing somewhere, but I can't see. I'm blind. Sorry, those lights are blinding me. I can't see. Oh, Ken?
Ken Brown in Region 6. I call question to the motion to cease nominations.
Thank you very much, Ken. Can we have a seconder? Can we have a second? Please go to the mic and identify yourself. Can we have a second to cease nominations?
Marilyn Lise, I'll second the motion.
Thank you very much. I can't see you, but I can hear somebody talking. Marilyn? Marilyn Lizet, thank you very much. Okay, all in favor of the motion to cease nominations? Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you very much. We have a chair. Bruce Gladue, do you accept? Where are you, Bruce? Bruce?
Yes, I do.
Thank you very much. Okay, now I would like to open nominations for a vice chair. Please go to the mic and identify yourself as who you're nominating for vice chair. I see Ken going. Ken's going to run this meeting. Thank you, Ken.
Ken Browning, Region 6. I nominate Greg Latender as Vice Chair.
Okay, we have a nomination of Greg Latender. Do we have a second? Do we have a second for Greg? Do we have a seconder for Greg? Do we have a seconder for Greg? Okay, let's move on. Do we have another nomination for Vice Chair?
Yes, Gail Gallup. I nominate Brian Fant.
Gail
Is-
nominates Brian Fant. Thank you, Gail. Do we have a
Okay.
seconder?
I don't know if he's here, though.
He was here earlier. Brian. Okay. Brian, do we have a seconder for Brian Fant? Do we have a seconder for Brian Fant? Do we have a seconder?
Angie Career, Grand Prairie, Region 6. I second that motion.
Thank you very much, Angie. Is Brian Fant here? Brian, you need to go to the mic if you're here. Brian? Brian, are you here? We can't have you unless you accept. Brian, are you here? Brian Fant. Okay, do we have any other nominations?
James Henry, Region 4. I nominate Lionel Chartrand.
James Henry nominates Lionel Chartrand.
Marilyn Lise, Region 6, I second the motion. Or
Okay.
nomination, sorry.
So we have a mover and a seconder for Lionel Chartrand. Lionel, are you here? Do you accept? Lionel, are you here? Do you accept?
Lionel Chartrand here. I am here, and I accept. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lionel. Do we have any other nominations for Vice Chair? Do we have any other nominations for Vice Chair? For the third and last time, do we have any other nominations for Vice Chair? Okay, can I have a motion for nominations to cease? Come on, Ken, I'm counting on you again. Can we have a motion for nominations to cease? Okay,
Ken Browning, Region 6. I make a motion to cease nominations on the Vice Chair.
thank you very much,
Call
Ken.
question.
Do we have a seconder? Do we have a seconder? Just go to the mic and state your name if we have a seconder to cease nominations.
I'd second that. John Phillips, Region 3.
John, thank you very much. All in favor of the motion to cease nominations? Opposed? Motion carried. Hey, we don't even have to vote. We have a vice chair, Lionel Chartrand. So Bruce and Lionel, please come and take your positions. And I have now finished my job for a while anyway. And I will turn it over to Bruce Gladue. I don't know if you need a minute to get everything organized that you need. I know they need the bylaws, they need the Robert's rules, they need agendas, but I believe they have them here. So thank you very much.
Okay, dokie. How y'all doing? Isn't this, at least for me, it's really different. First time I've ever been acclaimed for the chair. It's, you guys usually know, right? And so I want to thank you for that. It's going to be a good day for all of us. And so I'm sure I speak for Lionel that we really appreciate the nominations and the confidence in us to run a business meeting for the Métis Nation of Alberta. And we're going to get right to business, actually. We have a lot of things to go over. Wasn't this morning awesome? It was a little chilly, and I gotta thank the elders for sticking it out. You know, and he even said that before his prayer. It's, you know, it's chilly, but this is, you know, some of the things we do. I can remember being in November 16th in minus 40-degree weather in front of the legislature for Louis Riel Day. You know, so we do have to have some sacrifices, and this morning was a small sacrifice compared to the folks that came before us, right? So thank you all. It was some awesome welcoming remarks as well from the town of St. Paul and from the local folks. For those of you that don't know, this is kind of my home community. Not so much St. Paul, but I was just born east of here in a small town called Elk Point. And then I was raised just north, east of here in a small town called Glendon, Alberta, which is the home of the world's largest pierogi. And so we were the only Métis family in this Ukrainian town, so it was a lively time when I was a kid. Anyway, we have quorum. We now have an agenda in front of you. You may see it. It could be part of your package or it could be separate. But we'd like to adopt this now. So the process that we're going to use is we'll have a vote. We'll have somebody nominate the acceptance of the agenda, the adoption of the agenda, and we'll have someone second it. And then we'll have a vote on it. But we'll also have time to amend it if there's changes to this agenda that you would like to do. So to start it off, you have a copy of the agenda. Could I get someone to move the adoption of the agenda and to second it?
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
I do have an amendment to request. Should we move for the agenda first or speak to the requested amendment?
You know what? Let's do the amendments first, and then we could just vote on the final document. What would you like to recommend, sir?
Yes, sir. It's John Phillips. I'm the chair of the Métis Judiciary Council. Something's come up. I have to return to Calgary as soon as possible, but I would like to give my report. So my request is that my report be moved up to the head of the line so I could speak to it and then hit the road.
Okay, so you're asking it, is it to move before the president's report? Or
yes, to be first. I have discussed that with the Madam President, and she's aware of the situation.
So, okay. So other than moving it around, it's not really adding anything to the agenda. We're just moving the speakers up. So we won't actually really make a motion to adopt that.
That's fine with me.
We'll just make it right now, this amendment, okay?
Thank you.
All right, is there any other amendments to the agenda? If there isn't, could I get somebody to move? And for the sound guy, can you make sure all the mics are on? Because it was really difficult because they weren't on, so people weren't being heard when they were moving and seconding it.
Yeah.
So if we could make sure, what we'll do is, I'm not even sure where all the mics are, but if we could put a number on each mic, like number 1, number 2, number 3.
Before you accept the agenda.
Yes. So I'm going to recognize mic number 1 over here. Were you moving?
No, I'd like to make an amendment to the agenda.
Okay.
I'd like to move the ordinary and special resolutions up to just after the president's report.
Okay. Now, I'm not sure if you want to provide a little background as to that reason behind that request, because we're going to have to actually ask the people if that's something that they would do, because one of the things that's with this agenda is the first part of it, the report of the officers. That's the business section of our meeting. The resolutions and the special and ordinary, that's where we get into our legislative body. That's when we start to do changes to our bylaws. So what being requested now is to move that piece up first before the president's report. So I'm going to leave that open for discussion. First of all, do we have a seconder for that? And then we'll have discussion on it. Do we have a... Okay. Mic number 2. And please say your name before you come to the mic and which region you are. Mic number 2.
So my name is Brian Fayant, and that's a different issue. I wanted to address a different issue. So he needs a seconder.
So are you seconding his?
No, I was up here before he made his motion, so I have a different issue. Thanks.
Okay, is there anybody going to second that?
Corianne Morin, Region 1, second.
Okay. Now, before we have a vote, is there any discussion? Are you guys okay with moving the number 5?
So, Mr. Chair, just one thing. It's more of a point of order. So
yes.
Just to address safety, there around here, you need to let people know where to escape and where they need to go. Number one, and the other thing is people are parking 3 layers thick. So for safety issues, if people want to get out of there sick or having a moment, that you can't be parking three cars to each other. So if someone could start rearranging that parking lot for safety matters. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for bringing that to our attention. And I was actually remiss before. And what I'd like to do is after we deal with this agenda, I'd like to just to back it up a little bit, because we did, even though we had a prayer for the procession, we've not had an opening prayer for the meeting. So I was remiss in that, and I apologize for that. So now for safety, if there is a fire, you're going to hear bells and you're going to hear a siren, and you would just go to the exits. If that exit is busy, then we have 2 exits here, and there's an exit on the south side of the building as well. I don't believe we have a muster point, but we would probably all want to get as far away, if there's an issue here, as far away from the building as we can. I don't believe, and there's also an exit over there if something does happen. So we've pretty well got that covered. In terms of the parking, Brian mentioned it, and if you know you have some might be parked illegally or whatnot, you may want to go change that up right now, because I'm not sure if they have like a bylaw parking guy who will come around and give you a ticket. Okay, so back to this motion here to move the resolutions to prior to the report of the president.
No, that's not.
Mike?
Bruce.
Yes.
Aaron, Region 4. The motion was to move it after the president's report.
Okay, that's it. Not before, but after the president's report. So that's the resolution, and it's been seconded. Any discussion on it? Is everybody okay? Do you want to speak to it? Do you think we should move it, or would you prefer to have it as the last agenda item after the president's report? Any mics? Anybody with anything to say? Mic number 1? Okay, if there's not, do I hear question? Question's been called. All in favor of moving the resolutions to after the president's report, please raise your hand. Those opposed? Motion's carried. So that will be moved to after the president's report. Okay, now we also have a resolution to adopt this agenda. Are there any other changes to the agenda, or we're going to finish that vote now to adopt the agenda? If not, do I hear question to adopting the agenda? Okay, she didn't catch the motion to adopt the agenda. Could we have somebody move the adoption of the agenda, please?
Region 6. I make the motion to adopt the agenda as with the changes as presented at this assembly.
Hello, hello. Can you hear me now? Can we, when you're
Yes.
up there, can you say your name, please? We need it for the recording secretary. So the last chap to make that motion. What is your name, sir? For the record.
Ken Browning, Mr. Chairman, Region 6.
Thank you, sir.
I made the motion.
Do we have a seconder for to adopt the agenda? Mic number 1?
You're not coming out clear, but anyways, I'll second that motion.
Perfect.
Brian
And this-
Fant, Region 1.
Perfect. Is there any discussion on the agenda? If not, do I hear a question? Question's been called. All in favor of adopting the agenda, please raise your hand. Opposed? Motion's carried. Now, if I could get the elder. Here, I'll just give. Hello, hello. Okay, we've got the mics working again. If you could please stand. We have Norma Spicer who's going to do the opening prayer. Thank you, Norma.
In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. Dear God, please bestow your blessings on our veterans, elders, Métis citizens, special guests, and all those present here today. Let us acknowledge and be grateful for the courage and sacrifice of Louis Riel, our soldiers and our ancestors who led a resistance against a government that seized their lands and discredited the rights and culture of Métis communities and families. We give thanks for the perseverance of those who gained recognition of our homelands and identity as an Indigenous people with rights under Canada's Constitution. We are also thankful, dear Lord, for our historical and present provincial, regional, local, and youth councils who pursue the social, economic, and cultural well-being of Métis people in Alberta. We are grateful for the opportunity to build on the vision of our nation as we advance our self-determination and strengthen our government-to-government relationships with Canada. We thank you for the opportunity to meet our needs in the delivery of our own health care, child care, housing, education, skills training, and most of all, dear Lord, for a future that will benefit our children and grandchildren. Please give us the wisdom to make this assembly a time in which we can shape and strengthen our social and political institutions. We pray for your guidance to use wisely those opportunities to which you've given us. Please allow us to share these generous gifts for the good of all our people. Help us to set aside our differences so that our deliberations can be conducted with mutual respect, even in the face of disagreement, and instill in us the respect to honor the decisions reached today. In all things, O God, endue us with a vision of what should be, tempered and informed by intelligence, compassion, and commitment, so that by our efforts and your supervening grace, our Métis Nation may have a future blessed with equity and peace. And today, I'd like to take a moment to remember and to pray for President Dwayne Zaraska and his families. His father is very ill, and let us all take a moment to pray and hope that everything goes well. Thank you. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. Amen.
Thank you, Norma. There. Doesn't that feel better? After the prayer, everything got nice and calm. Sweet. And just maybe if you could, to keep in your prayers as well, Region 3 President Lawrence is having a few health issues as well, Lawrence Gervais. And so if you just keep him in your prayers that things work out for him as well. I don't know if he's able to make it here. He did say that he might, but if you could just keep him in your prayers, that's great. So I'm going to introduce the Resolution Committee, and what I would just, wherever you are, if you're here, if you could just stand up. And the Resolutions Committee has been put in place since the last AGA, and we don't really have a process now other than that when they're appointed at an AGA, they serve for the next AGA. So I'm thinking, since these guys have already served, that it's just a formality that they stay on the Resolutions Committee until their region changes them. I'm presuming that because we don't have a formal process. But the folks that have met already as a Resolution Committee from Region 1, Brian Fayant. Brian, are you here? Over there. Region 2, Rhonda Young. Is Rhonda here? If you could just stand. Region 3, Wally Garrick. There's Wally there. You'll remember he plays Louis Riel in that Louis Riel play. Region 4, Tyler Fetch. Is Tyler? Yep, Tyler's over there. Region 5, Shane Combs. Shane, there he is. Thank you, Shane. And Region 6, Garrett Tomlinson. Garrett's back there as well. And so these folks have met already as a Resolutions Committee, and they've reviewed the 3 resolutions that have been presented, and we'll have a report immediately after the President's report. So with that, without any further ado, I'm going to call up President Audrey Patras for her presentation. And while she's making her way up, I just want to have a couple of announcements to make. So you've probably seen the Alberta, right. I'm sorry. The paper I had in front of me wasn't the one I wrote on, but the MJC is coming up first. And while they're making their way up, I just want to remind you of a couple things that are happening. You've probably noticed the high blood pressure machines over there. They're available for anyone who wants to go and get their blood pressure taken. There's also a PSA test that can detect prostate problems and just things if you want to stay healthy and find out if you're healthy, to visit them. We also have Rupert's Land Institute that is having 4 draws. One for a 42-inch TV and a sound bar. You just have to go to their booth and answer some questions, and then there's going to be a draw. And there's a 1-year subscription for Xbox. There's a Xbox Gaming Council, and there's a couple backpacks available as well. So if you get to their booth, you can be eligible for these draws as well. Now we have the Métis Judiciary Council report coming. Thank you.
Thank you, Bruce. Good morning, everybody. My name is John Phillips. I am from Region 3, Calgary. I am the chair of the Métis Judiciary Council.
Hey guys, this is something we found out yesterday. There's a lot of feedback that we're getting because of the sound system and the concrete walls. And so it makes things really difficult for people to hear. And so we need to keep the chatter at a minimum, because if we keep the chatter down, it's a lot easier to hear. And I know there's a lot of social things that we need to talk about, that, it's great that we come here to, to gather, but we have to have a little bit of quiet on this side of the building. There's an elders lounge available there, like if you want to go and talk, and you could meet there, as well as the other side here where we have the trade show. So there'll be plenty of opportunities for you to talk there. But during the business meeting, if we could just keep that down, out of respect for the folks that are presenting, as well as the folks in the back that really can't hear because of the reverb that we're getting. Thank you.
Okay, take 2. I'm happy to announce that the Métis Judiciary Council we're back online. We're in operation after a 4-year abeyance that was put into place to do various reviews. I had hoped to have to be able to have made this announcement about 6 months ago, but I knew a year ago that right around the time when the Assembly said that we're moving forward with the bringing the Métis Judiciary Council back on into operation, that I just got appointed or came on with a lengthy jury trial that involved criminal negligence causing death, a young mother that had been charged, and if I wouldn't have agreed to act for her, she was not going to have any representation. So as it was, I was tied up for a number of months on that. We started getting into the process of getting things revamped and revised and up and running again. And then I hit one of the weirdest periods of my life where my brother was diagnosed with throat cancer, thought he was going to be okay, then it became terminal. Then we had to get involved with assisted dying. So literally I had to spend a couple of months literally trying to kill my brother. During that time, he lived in Winnipeg with my 9-year-old mother. During that time, she had developed thyroid cancer, and so she also had to have an operation, which I'm happy to say it was successful. But then with my brother's death, my sister and I had to arrange for my mother to sell her place where she's lived in Winnipeg for 50 years and move to southern Alberta with that. So and then during that time, and then in June, I got married, so it wasn't all bad news, and ended up going on a honeymoon. So I have gone through a very bittersweet up and down period of time for about 4 or 5, 6 months there, so the delay in getting the Métis Judicial Council back up and running is all on me. It was the personal stuff I was going through that caused the delay, so I do apologize for that. However, I think it's important looking at moving forward. We basically are starting from scratch because with the length of time that was off, we had to go through the corporate memory, see what all the records were there, what was going on with that. We faced some staffing challenges to get a secretary for the council. We did a competition, ran that for a couple of months. We had hired somebody we thought would be starting in June, and at the last moment, in fact, the day that she was supposed to start, she quit, said that it was too complicated, wasn't going to be able to handle it, and it was too challenging. So we had to go into another recruitment drive, and I'm happy to say that we were able to find a successful candidate who is now the secretary of the council, Joel Esselamount. He has a legal background as a legal assistant, and that is one of the challenges, was trying to find somebody with a very specific, specialized background that'd be able to step in and move on with this position. We have had our initial meeting with all the representations from all the regions, and looking at that's going to be moving on. We will be contacting all the outstanding cases that were put into abeyance 4 years ago to see what is worthwhile moving on, whether they want to, what the status. We will be doing that. In the interim, we have received one new case that has not been fully, all the information behind it has been fully provided for us. We have been in contact with that individual, and we're expecting to have something to move forward on that shortly. So we are up and running. I would point out that the Judicial Council is a quasi-judicial body. It is separate and independent. This was recognized by the Métis Nation a number of years ago, actually physically moving the office of the MJC out of their offices into its own area. We are responsible to the nation, the people, you at the General Assembly of the annual assemblies, we do our annual report. So this will be the first of the new ones. It is important to remember that the Judiciary Council is a creature of the Métis Nation. We exist only because the Métis Nation thinks it is important to the people, you, that we are there to act as a dispute resolution as they come up. This is something that we take very seriously, and the idea of being an objective body, unbiased, and trying to represent what's right and to do what's just in each case, and to avoid any political biases. This is something that's going to be very interesting with the new future that tied in with the constitutional talks that were delivered yesterday, is that as we transition from having being a nonprofit corporation under in Alberta to a self-governing body with our own constitution, the provision for the Métis Judiciary Council will have to be dealt with at that time as we move from a body that exists because MNA wants to have it in their bylaws to being an actual entity under the Constitution. So it is going to be some interesting, challenging times in the near future, but we are looking forward, and I have all the confidence in the representatives from all the regions that will be moving forward. So that is my report to the body, and I thank you for listening and your attention and your indulgence in allowing to move forward. Mr. Chairman?
Okay, that's the report from the Judiciary Council. Are there any questions before we get into the vote on accepting it? Does anybody have any questions?
Mike 2.
Mike 2?
Over here.
Okay, that's Mike 2.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
What's your name, sir? Can you, for the purposes of the recording secretary, we need your name and your region.
Ken Browning, Region 6. Congratulations on being the chair, Mr. Phillips. I have a couple of friendly questions and a couple of friendly suggestions for you and your people to consider. In my region, I was wondering why in all 6 regions that the Judiciary Committee positions were not posted for people to apply with a resume, a cover letter, and support letters of support, which I feel I am qualified for such a position. And there are others that have called me about the same thing, that it should have went out, been posted, and maybe the 6 presidents of the different regions, President Poitras, Vice President Cardinal, they could have reviewed resumes, maybe a call of 3 or 4 for each region, and from there pick the people and interview them that would sit on this Judiciary Committee, because this is a very important committee. I feel I'm well qualified to apply. However, I'm not against Marge Mueller that is sitting for Region 6. I think she's a wonderful lady, and I believe she's super qualified. However, I didn't get a chance to challenge that. And that she won over me, I would accept that quite gladly. She's a wonderful lady, and I'm not challenging Marge. I'm just challenging the system the way it was done. I feel if it went out for posting, that there are other people in the province that contacted me that would have liked to put in a resume, the support letter, and apply for the position. And now that you're the chair, you could be a part of the selection of these people. I'm sure we have lots of wonderful people out there that might not be quite qualified, might be a little more qualified than the people you do have that were appointed by the regions. I don't support the appointment system that happened, and these are just friendly suggestions for you and your people to consider if it's quite possible to change that procedure, because now we are going to be going into self-government. We have to make some changes here and there, because you are representing everybody in this room, and there are people that are shy to come up to the mic and voice their objections, and then they look at an old horse like me to maybe do a little talking. Thank you for your time, and have a safe trip home, and hopefully you'll consider some of my suggestions.
Yeah. Thank you, sir.
Point of order, Mike 4.
Well, before we
Point of order, Mike 4. Mike 4.
Where's Mike 4?
Point of order.
Yes, Mike 4.
Can we properly move and second acceptance of the report before we start discussion?
Yes, what had happened, sir, and you probably will remember, as I said, is does anybody have any questions before we go to the vote to accept the report? And I get that discussion happens during the vote as well, but this was a report presented, so we thought we'd get a little bit of feedback before we get to the actual voting. But you know what, let's do that right now. Do we have a motion to accept the report as presented from the Métis Judiciary Council chairperson?
Right, Mike 4.
Mike?
Brian Amlin, Region 3, move acceptance of the Judiciary Council's report.
Perfect. Do we have a seconder?
Corianne Morin, I'll second it.
Perfect. Any more discussion on the report? If not, do I hear question? Sir, did you have? Somebody have discussion on it? If not, do I hear question?
Mike 4. Mike 4.
Mike 4.
Brian Amlin, Region 3. John, do you have the list of the Judiciary Council members to share with the Assembly here today?
Actually, I don't. Hold on. Remember your name and recognized from the chair. Mic number 2.
Corianne Morin, Region 1. And my concern for the Métis Judiciary Council that it's not somebody that's appointed, it's somebody that actually knows the justice system and that's going to protect our human rights and our women's rights as well.
Any others? Mic number 1.
Bruce,
Okay.
point of order.
Point of order. Mic number 3.
Ken Browning asked a question for the chair to answer, and he's not been given the opportunity to respond to Ken Browning's question. And then you guys moved on with your point of order. So could we go back to Ken Browning and what he's going to respond?
Well, Mr. Browning is up at the mic again. Mr. Browning, did you have anything further to add to that if you felt that your question wasn't answered?
Ken Browning, Region 6, Mr. Chairman. I would like to give Mr. Phillips the opportunity to go home and maybe give us an answer a little later on. He's going to chew on it and think about it. It was quite a lengthy speech I gave there. So I'll call question to the motion.
Perfect. Question's been called. All in favor of the report, please raise your hand. Accepting the report. All those opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you. Okay. And aren't we all Philadelphia lawyers anyway? Okay. Next on the agenda is the reports of the officers. President Audrey Patra, if she could make her way forward. Madam President. Oh, there she comes. Don't forget RLI in their contest. Win a TV.
I'm sorry. I was just saying goodbye to our provincial government's guests, our ministers, so sorry about that. So again, I'm going to say good morning, veterans, elders, youth, fellow Métis, ladies and gentlemen. It's that time of year again when we come together to acknowledge and to celebrate the progress we have made, to meet with family and friends, and to continue receiving direction from you, our citizens, on building a strong Métis Nation. I want to take the opportunity to say a great big thank you to Region 2, President Dwayne Zaraska and Vice President Andrea Sandmeyer. They are the hosts of this year's annual assembly, and you've done a great job. Thank you very, very much. Much has happened since we last came together in Lac La Biche 12 months ago. Another devastating wildfire, this time in Region 6, the High Level and the Paddle Prairie area, affecting many of our citizens and evacuees in Region 5 as well. At last year's assembly, I spoke of the signing of the MNA Canada Framework Agreement, the MNA Canada Consultation Agreement, and the MNA Parks Canada MOU. You also heard that the Government of Canada had committed to begin the process of establishing a federal claims process that would recognize Métis self-government, would recognize and financially support an MNA developed constitution, and establish a process to resolving outstanding claims. Well, that is moving forward with the signing of our Métis government recognition and self-government agreement. You also heard that under our new 10-year framework agreement with the Government of Alberta that commits to working with us on a nation-to-nation basis as the government of the Métis people in Alberta was to complete the Métis harvesting agreement and a Métis consultation policy. Well, that too has moved forward with the signing of the Métis harvesting agreement. And you heard from the minister this morning that we're going to get back onto the consultation policy. So more on these important steps later, but I want to take a moment to recognize all of our citizens who had to deal with the evacuations and the loss of their homes during the fire. Rupert's Land Institute's mobile units were on the road, immediately delivering supplies to Region 5 and Region 6 to support the evacuees. A second truckload of supplies from Region 1 and 2 also went to Region 5 and 6 to disperse where needed. Thankfully, once again, there was no loss of life. I want to give a huge thank you to your Region 6 President, Carol Ridsdale, and her team for taking the lead role for the MNA in supporting the evacuees. Thank you, Carol. My report is going to be long, and I may be saying some of the things that some of you heard yesterday, but I know a lot of our members don't get here till today, so I want to make sure that everyone has a clear picture of what we've done. So I want to first begin by acknowledging that no ministers have been assigned to portfolios yet since the last election, but provincial council members have been very active at the provincial level as well as the work being done at their regional level. In your annual report, there's very informative reports submitted by the regional leadership. Finances. As you will hear from our provincial treasurer, Lawrence Gervais, and the auditor, we have a very strong financial position again this year. Following the signing of our Canada agreements and the federal budgets of 2017 and 2018, our finances have increased substantially. I want to say thank you to not only our treasurer, Lawrence, but our Senior Executive Officer, Aaron Varner, and the finance staff. Thank you for all the work that you do. Métis National Council. Once again this year, there have been 5 meetings with Prime Minister Trudeau and federal ministers, which resulted in the signing of more agreements. An early learning and childcare 10-year accord, which will allow for the designing of Métis-specific programs and services and establishing childcare centers. A post-secondary education 10-year accord, which will supply additional resources for educational supports and initiatives. An economic development 5-year accord to enhance supports to Métis capital corporations and invest in business opportunities for the nation. A homelessness 10-year accord for development of long-term solutions for citizens experiencing or at risk of homelessness. An interim governance 10-year accord that will support areas of governance such as regional and local community development and capacity, lawmaking and judicial processes, communications, finance and human resources, information technology, and planning and policy development. All of these agreements come with financial resources attached. The challenging part for us is the length of time it takes to put the Government of Canada's processes in place to flow the money, as this is a new process to them as well. But 1 year later, We have accessed the 2017-18 money, so it eventually gets here and at least we can plan. A $30 million Canada Métis Nation Veterans Recognition Payment Agreement was signed by Métis National Council for compensation for World War II veterans and their immediate families as a legacy fund in support of remembrance, memorials, and monuments, and compensation. I was advised last week by President Chartrand of the Manitoba Métis Federation, who is overseeing it, that criteria will be in place by the fall as how to access the fund, that 1 BC and 2 Saskatchewan veterans have been awarded the Order of the Métis Nation and received $20,000 checks from this fund, with 1 Manitoba veteran still to present to. And I was asked to advise you if anyone knows of any World War II Métis veterans that have passed on in the last 3 years, their immediate family could receive that compensation. MNC accessed resources to host 1 meeting per province with 60 Scoop survivors in order to develop a framework to be used to negotiate a settlement for Métis Nation 60 Scoop survivors. Based on the interest and the need here in Alberta, we have committed to additional regional meetings in our province. There has been only 1 short Board of Governors meeting and 1 special assembly since our last year's assembly that has caused concern for our MNA delegation due to an attempt to suspend Métis Nation of Ontario, as well as the concerns of the MNC audit, which I am sure some of you have heard about in the news. The presidents of Ontario, Saskatchewan, and myself have requested a BOG meeting to try to deal with these concerns, with no results so far. It has been very difficult, but I do want to take a moment to thank our Senior Executive Officer, Aaron Barner. Aaron, where are you? He's not here? He's gone? Oh, well, I'm not going to thank him then. I do want to thank him for all the time he has spent in Ottawa on national initiatives, as that is the only way that we have been able to keep up on what's happening since we don't have those Board of Governors meetings. I also want to report, as reported last year, nationally, the women of the Métis Nation have been very involved with the Missing and Murdered Women and Girls Initiative and have now finalized their report specific to the Métis, which will be available soon, I'm told, and with 62 recommendations going forward. We also advised last year that MNA had financially supported the National Women's Group with intervenor status in the Cindy Gladue case. Well, this case has now been heard in court, and he will be retried for the killing. So I want to say a great big thank you to Melanie Ominahu, President of the National Women's Group, as well as our Provincial Women's Group, who have all put a lot of work into that. Thank you very much, all of you. Housing. Métis Urban Housing Corporation continues to provide subsidized housing under the Urban Native Housing Program funded by Alberta Seniors and Housing, with 505 units in 14 communities throughout the province. Occupancy rates have improved with the renovations of over 300 units since 2015, when the cleanup of our corporation began. But the waiting list continues to grow and currently exceeds 1,330 families. Immediately following our signing of the Canada MNA Accord, we proved our case to Canada that we were underfunded all the years according to our operating agreements. And we did this by presenting an analysis of our homes and the replacement reserve fund going back to the beginning of the operating agreements. Our analysis showed a funding deficit of approximately $60 million over those years. We are happy to report, though, that Canada has agreed to settle this debt in full. We will see a one-time payment of $38 million to Métis Urban Housing, a one-time payment of $9 million to Métis Capital Housing, and a $14 million to be annual installments of $1.4 million over 10 years. So hopefully this will stop the process of having those homes that are uninhabitable. Métis Capital Housing was created to take ownership of homes upon the expiration of low-income funding subsidies under the MUHC program. This housing corporation holds the mortgage-free assets, which now has 354 units in its portfolio. Métis Capital delivers its own affordable housing program that provides accommodation at rates set to a minimum of 20% less than market rate, along with a fixed utility charge. Capital also operates the Renaissance Tower, a 90-unit seniors and persons with disability facility. The Seniors Lodge, a 40-unit, fully serviced assisted living facility. And the Family Reunification Center, a facility to assist in reuniting children in care with their families in a safe, secure, drug, and alcohol-free environment. And we are currently looking to expand this program to a second location because of the need. Since 2015, Capital has also completed renovations on over 150 homes. At the Renaissance Tower, Capital has worked with the MNA to provide temporary accommodations for Métis citizens while receiving medical treatment in Edmonton. 17 families have so far utilized these accommodations. Renaissance Tower also has a 10,000 square foot commercial space that now has been leased out to a dental clinic that provides free dental services to low-income families, a doctor's office, a pharmacy, a convenience store, and we have one small space reserved for some other Métis-specific initiative that we could put within that center. As reported, thank you. As reported last year, our long-term development plan for the corporation includes an asset management plan that will guide the business decisions the corporation will make moving forward. Provincially, under the Affordable Home Program, Métis Capital has received commitment to see 10 uninhabitable homes demolished and replaced with 20 units on the existing sites. And federally, the Métis Nation has completed a national accord with Canada that will see some key initiatives rolled out in the very near future. New affordable housing developed or acquired, a down payment assistance program, a home repair program, an emergency repair program, a low-income rental supplement program, and the establishment of a replacement reserve, once again, to ensure those homes are kept livable. We believe we have made great strides in pushing a Métis Nation-specific agenda that will benefit Métis citizens in need of adequate housing. The litigation we have spoke about over the last few years continues, and it is continuing to be defended by Métis Urban Housing, even though it requires a lot of time, energy, and resources. We must protect our corporation. So I want to say a great big thank you to the Métis Urban Housing, the Métis Capital Housing, the Advisory Committee, and the staff for all the hard work they have done to bring us to this point. Thank you very, very much. Forestry. The MNA continues to coordinate an emergency wildfire dispatch contract with the Government of Alberta. Part of the responsibility here is to maintain a list of available, qualified emergency firefighting personnel, fitness testing, and training as required. Of course, this year, once again, our crews were very busy. And with all the province-wide disasters occurring more frequently and intensely each year, we have begun discussions on an emergency preparedness plan for the Métis Nation. After the fire in Fort McMurray, Local 1935 worked closely with the Red Cross, the Emergency Management Services, and others to create an emergency disaster plan for them. I want to take a moment to thank Brian Fant, if he's here now, from Local 1935, for assisting us in starting to put our provincial plan together. Thank you, Brian. In sports, this year, the MNA entered 2 hockey teams, the Voyageurs Novice and the Voyageurs Adams, in the Alberta Native Provincial Hockey Tournament. The Voyageurs Novice team defended their title from last year by demonstrating their youthful enthusiasm by going undefeated and winning the gold medal. Yes. Our Voyageur Adam team played their hearts out, but they were defeated in the final game. It was truly awesome watching these young boys and girls work so hard on the ice. And we have now secured the resources to have a women's team next year. So I want to say thank you to the coaches and the staff that worked hard to write proposals, find sponsors, and support the hockey teams. Thank you all very much. You know who you are. Thank you. Registry. Our statistics, over 40,000 to date, show that we continue to have a notable increase in our membership applications, 3,925 this year. Also, telephone and email inquiries, along with a rise of in-person visits to our Genealogy Resource Center. Registry has assisted with citizenship drives for locals and regions and have been traveling with our Rupert's Land Institute mobile unit, as well as they are attempting to reduce wait times for our cards. Registry has been actively involved with sports and with educational requirements, successfully registering youth to allow them to participate in the tournaments and accessing scholarships. And the Genealogy Center has been busy. They have provided one-on-one support to 130 individuals in determining their Métis ancestry. Justice. As you heard from the chair of the Judiciary Council, a resolution was passed last year, and now you know that our Judiciary Council is up and ready to run. And as we've heard, we need to look at other areas, which we will do as we talk about our Constitution, I'm sure. So I want to say a great big thank you to the chair, John Phillips. Thank you, John. Also in justice, Muriel Stanley Venn continues to sit on the National Aboriginal Advisory Committee to the Commissioner of Prisons on behalf of the Métis Nation of Alberta. She is very excited about the progress being made on the solitary confinement concerns. She continues to keep us all updated, as well as each year she puts a report in our annual assembly. So Muriel, I know you're here. Thank you very, very much for what you do in that area for us. Thank you, Muriel. As well, on the Court Challenges program, I reported to you last year the Government of Canada was in the process of modernizing the previous Court Challenge program that was cancelled. The purpose of the program was to financially support court cases of a national interest to advance and clarify rights issues. I was asked by the Minister of Canadian Heritage to sit on the selection committee to appoint 2 expert panels, official languages and human rights. Those selections have now been made, and the program has been reinstated. This financial support, I believe, is very important, as it has certainly been used in the past by the Métis Nation legal teams. I'll move on to education, training, and research. All of our education, training, and research initiatives are administered through the MNA's Rupert's Land Institute with a vision for a skilled, knowledgeable, and self-reliant Métis Nation. The education arm of Rupert's Land administers all post-secondary endowments created under the Métis Education Foundation. Our Métis-specific endowment program is now valued at $25 million at 18 post-secondary institutions in the province. This year saw the creation of 5 new endowments at Northern Lakes College, Lakeland College, Medicine Hat College, Concordia University, and SAIT. To date, 1,515 students have received these Métis Scholar Awards. And our goal is to have endowments in every institution so students will have access to wherever they choose to attend. And with the new post-secondary funding of $2.5 million this year, the Métis Education Foundation will be able to create 2 new endowments and supplement existing endowments where needed. With part of our early learning and childcare funding, Métis Education Foundation will create an endowment that targets Métis citizens entering into early learning studies to meet our needs as we establish early learning centers. In addition, we have acquired resources to implement a school kit project that will provide Métis children in preschool to grade 12 with backpacks filled with school supplies for the new school year. And please contact your regional offices because they will have kits out there for your young ones. Thank you. Rupert's Land has successfully established the Rupert's Land Centre for Teaching and Learning, created by the Alberta Métis Education Council, as well as the RLI Education team, comprised of highly accomplished Métis professionals in the field of education. This vehicle is being used to bring Métis foundational resources and professional development opportunities to Alberta's 44,000 teachers in promoting Métis content to provincial curriculum, the launch of the Michif Language Revitalization Project, and ensuring Métis perspectives in history and culture will be taught to students across the full education spectrum from K to 12. We have been able to do all of this by moving from a $75,000 a year budget to last year signing a $1.5 million agreement with Alberta Education. Training. There is a province-wide network of 10 employment services offered and 2 mobile units, and I think you see them outside here, for services to rural communities. Consistent with most years, Métis Training to Employment has funded 1,093 clients this year, and visitors to the 2 mobile units while attending events has numbered 1,627 inquiries. I am pleased to report that we have negotiated a new funding agreement with ESDC Canada for the Alberta Métis Education and Training Strategy and the Indigenous Skills and Employment Training Agreement. This is a 10-year agreement totaling $170 million, so we know our training can continue. The Rupert's Land Centre for Métis Research was formally created as Canada's first Métis-specific academic research centre. The centre hosts on-campus activities such as Métis Talks at least twice a year. This year, the centre hosted the Métis Script and Land Conference with presentations by Métis experts, which attracted participants from all across Canada. The University of Alberta has established the Rupert's Land Art Commission to develop an art piece for permanent display on campus in recognition of Rupert's Land and MNA contributions to the university. I want to say a great big thank you to the Rupert's Land Institute Board, the Rupert's Land Centre for Métis Research Board, the Education Council, and all the staff. Thank you for all your work. I'm still going. Children's Services. Our Children's Services managers and Métis resource workers have supported 12 families as part of their primary goals to help maintain and preserve the Métis culture, ensure that Métis children in care are identified and connected to their culture and community, and work with Children's Service staff, kinship, and foster families caring for Métis children. Our supports and services navigators have assisted 1,045 of our Métis children to find programs and supports they are looking for, as well as advocate for them. We assisted in the identification of 60 Métis children in care through our registration system who had never been earlier identified as Métis. And with the passing of Bill C-92, the children's legislation, Indigenous children are now a focal point for the Government of Canada. For us, this shift means that self-determination also comes to the front. The MNA will be seeking jurisdiction for our Children's Authority, as we know our children are best left to us to care for. That will be our priority this year. I want to say thank you to all the Children's Service team. Thank you. Health. We are also continuing to work on developing our MNA Health Clinic, which is to include a team of professionals, including physicians, nurses, mental health therapists, dietitians, Métis Health navigators, and community outreach workers. This has had its challenges, but we will not give up when we know how great the need is out there for our Métis Health Centre. We have also continued to work with Alberta Health under our information sharing agreement. New reports released this year are diabetes among the Métis Nation of Alberta, and the burden of hypertension and heart disease among Métis Albertans. Next year's reports will be on arthritis among Métis and mental wellness and addictions. The Health Department partnered on a project called Live-In Addiction Treatment Standards to provide key findings and recommendation on standards of care for youth and adults living in addiction treatment centers. The training and awareness programs are being offered to promote healthy behaviors and reduce risks and barriers to care. 27 citizens have received first aid training, and 1,111 people have been trained on opioid awareness, and many more have attended our community health nights. The department continues to work on the Cancer Strategy Project to improve experiences and supports for our citizens. And 9 families have been able to been assisted with travel to their appointments. I want to also say thank you to the Health Committee and all the health staff for their work. Thank you. And again this year, our Métis Youth and Senior Symposium was held for the youth to benefit from older generations, who in turn benefited from the energy and the vision of our young people. Hundreds of youth and seniors attended. With the positive feedback from last year's Youth Culture Camp, this year we hosted 2 summer youth camps, a Voyageur camp at Métis Crossing, and a week-long summer camp at Camp Wohelo on Pigeon Lake. There was also a Cabin Fever Métis family camp enjoyed by 8 Métis families during the winter. The youth department has also hosted over 25 cultural workshops across the province, as well as firearm safety training. And as a follow-up on the Youth Council resolution last year, regional youth coordinators have now been hired to work out of all 6 regions. It has been a pleasure to watch this group of young people develop, coordinate, and implement programs and services throughout their regions. Our provincial youth coordinator has continued to support the Youth Council and the regional youth coordinators. I also want to say a great big thank you to our Provisional Youth Council for moving our youth issues forward, for working collectively with the youth coordinators, and for placing yourselves in a position of future leaders for the Métis Nation of Alberta. Thank you very much, and thank you, youth coordinators. Thank you. Veterans. Once again, we were honored to have veterans attend and participate in our opening ceremonies this year. I would like to take the opportunity to acknowledge John MacDonald, past president of the Aboriginal Veterans Society of Alberta, for all your support to the MNA and your hours and hours of work promoting the Bold Eagle program. The Bold Eagle program is a unique summer employment program that combines Aboriginal culture and teachings with military trainings. The Aboriginal veterans have supported and honored so many of our young Métis men and women in this program. So thank you, John, and everyone who helps you do that. Thank you. We were able to acquire funds to support 3 of our Métis veterans to attend the 75th anniversary of Juno Beach Landing. As stated by the veterans, and I want to quote, "It was a once-in-a-lifetime experience to return there." Please thank your staff, Erin Barner, Angela Hunter, and Terry Boucher, for the magnificent job of getting us place to place under unpredictable circumstances, for assisting us at every turn, ensuring our safety and security, making our way through airports as well as the areas we visited in France, unquote. I too want to say thank you from all of us to the veterans and to Erin, Angela, and Terry. Thank you. I would also like to take the opportunity to acknowledge and congratulate Mr. Harry Patrick Hope, an MNA member and member of the Aboriginal Veterans Society, on being honored by the Korean government with the Peace Medal for his services in the Korean War. There was a beautiful ceremony to honor him. As directed by our Assembly, the MNA is moving forward to create a monument at Métis Crossing dedicated to Métis veterans. A lot of work is going into it. Designs have been developed. Funding proposals have been submitted. Research is continuing to identify all soldiers, and the actual project will begin as the next big project at Métis Crossing. Today, I want to thank and recognize all veterans for their commitment and their sacrifices made throughout history, as well as for your presence at events in our community throughout the year. Thank you very much. Seniors, our regional offices continue to host workshops, assisting seniors throughout the province to be aware and take advantage of programs available. Thank you to our Elders Council, all seniors, and traditional knowledge keepers for all of the support provided to everyone during the year. You are the backbone of our nation, and it was evident with your participation at the Youth and Seniors Symposium once again this year. Thank you all very, very much. I'm never going to quit. Culture. Historical calendars continue to be available. This year is focused on the history of Métis Crossing. And as you will probably recall, we we talked about an MOU was signed with Fort Edmonton Park and the City of Edmonton to participate in the revitalization and the expansion of the Indigenous experience at Fort Edmonton Park. And within it is a big part of Métis history, a story of the Métis. We also have been involved with Paint the Rails, murals telling the Métis stories in LRT stations. Our culture team and some of our provincial council members have been very involved. Métis Week activities once again continued right across the province with open houses, seniors' teas, jamborees, children and youth art contests, the Louis Riel commemoration ceremony in the legislature, and the annual Louis Riel walk to our own MNA St. Margaret's Church, and all were very well attended. Alberta Métis Fest was a new cultural showcase this year, with 6 Métis Fest events hosted by the region across the province on the same day, showcasing and celebrating our rich, vibrant culture to thousands of guests. Our provincial office and the regions hosted an Alberta Day at Batoche once again this year, with lots of great music, dancers, and of course, our Alberta Pavilion with Métis history. I want to say a big thank you to our MC for Batoche, Provincial Vice President Dan Cardinal, our regional leadership for supplying the entertainers, the band, the singers, and the dancers for all doing a great job. And a big thank you. And a big thank you to the culture team for supporting them all. Métis Crossing. Phase 2 of the Métis Crossing site, a cultural gathering center located on River Lot 12, is now underway. The official groundbreaking ceremony took place on May 14th, 2018. GenMech had commenced construction by September, using many Métis subtrades and suppliers. Over 2,345 hours of Métis employment has been tracked by GenMech. This 10,000 square foot facility will hold a large gathering hall, traveling exhibit space, classrooms, an amazing deck overlooking the river, and an open kitchen. It is scheduled to be completed by late November this year. Then Métis Crossing will be open year-round. For this season, from May to September, Métis Crossing has continued to host events for National Indigenous Peoples Day, Voyageur Days, school tours, music festivals, family reunions, and weddings. Métis Crossing, with the assistance of Métis Nation Holdings, purchased an additional 160 acres of land directly north of our existing river lots. The seller, Irene Robertson, shared stories of the connection her family shared with the original Métis settlers along Victoria Trail, and how important it was to her family that this land become a part of Métis Crossing. And I guarantee you, we got it very, very cheap. I want to say thanks to the board of Métis Crossing, to the culture team, and all the staff, including the large contingent of summer students that contributed to our success there. Thank you. Economic development. We hosted our 6th annual business mixer, where once again we honored 6 businesses from across the province to acknowledge their achievements, with hundreds of individuals attending. The Alberta Métis Works database of Métis-owned business and contractors that you heard about last year is now online. The MNA regions and affiliates have been developing an economic development strategy that will bring continuity to our efforts. We hope to have economic development officers in all of our regional offices by next year. MNA has a $5 million agreement with the Government of Canada for Métis Economic Development Strategy funding. The funds are split evenly between Apitigosan and the Métis Nation. We continue to explore and conduct due diligence on several major equity projects that will yield long-term benefits and self-sustainability for the nation, such as the Trans Mountain Pipeline as per your resolution last year. We have had discussions, as you heard this morning, with Minister Rick Wilson on the Alberta government's $1 billion Investment Opportunity Fund. API to go, son. This fiscal year, API has approved $3.4 million in funding assistance to new and existing business. The economic activity this year is not focused in any one industry, but from many: construction, transport, service, oil and gas, and agriculture. Our loan portfolio has remained stable at $7.5 million while maintaining a profitability of operations at $500,000. Métis entrepreneurship in Alberta is still very much alive. Our current work in progress for next year is already at $3 million. Pinnacle Business Services continues to assist in the development of 35 business plans for clients, as well as providing aftercare for 50 clients. API remains in the top 5 of overall performance across all Aboriginal financial institutes across Canada, but more importantly, continues to remain relevant to the Métis community by increasing flexibility in financing terms offered and enhanced repayment options for Métis entrepreneurs. I want to say a big thank you to the API board, the general manager, Mike Ivey, and all the staff from API. Thank you. Environment. As a follow-up to the action plan on climate change presented here last year, the Climate Leadership Program expanded to include climate change coordinators in each of the regional offices, hosting workshops and completing retrofit and energy-efficient assessments on multiple MNA and affiliates buildings. Our environment team is leading an initiative to develop an Indigenous community-based monitoring program to support the consultation team with traditional land use studies and participate on committees, as well as being engaged at the federal level. And I know this report is long, and now last, but certainly not least, Métis rights. This has been a tremendous year for the Métis Nation of Alberta. This year, we achieved...
Excuse me, everybody. We've just had a request to see if
I'm almost finished.
there's a really big buzz over there, so there's folks over here that aren't hearing. So if we could just keep it calm, this is the last piece of the report, and then we're going to break for lunch. So if we could just keep it down until this report is done, thank you.
Thank you. This has been a tremendous year for the Métis Nation of Alberta. This year, we achieved things for which we have been fighting for decades, generations maybe. Getting here took dedication and hard work from the leaders and the citizens that came before us, from the MNA staff over those years, from everyone in this room, and from our citizens across the province. We only achieved what we did because we were all pulling together. We were united as a nation. This is a time to look back and to give thanks. It's a time to take stock of our accomplishments. As we progress in advancing recognition of the rights of the Métis Nation within Alberta, 2 accomplishments from the past stand out. The Métis Harvesting Agreement we signed with Alberta and the Self-Government Agreement we signed with Canada. I want to talk about what went on and went into both these agreements and what they mean for the Métis Nation within Alberta. A lot of hard work still lies ahead, but we can all draw inspiration from what we have already achieved. Sharing an understanding of where we came from is crucial as we work together to develop a shared vision of where we're going. We are here today because we are Indigenous. The territory in what is now Alberta was part of the Métis Nation homelands for generations before settlers came west and this province was created. The rivers, lakes, forests, and prairies of Alberta shaped us. We would hunt, fish, trap, and gather to put food on our tables and to feed our culture. Our connection to the land, which was renewed every season as we harvested, became a crucial part of what makes the Métis who we are. Following Confederation, settlers from Eastern Canada pushed into our homeland. We were promised that we would be treated fairly and that our rights to the land would be respected. We would soon find out that this was not true. The overwhelming legacy of colonialism for the Métis is dispossession. Canada left us landless. When scrip turned out to be an empty promise, we were literally left by the wayside, forced to squat on narrow strips of Crown land, set aside by Dominion surveyors on the edges of new towns and roads. This is how we became known as the Road Allowance people. The Métis Nation, the proud new people of the Northwest, became refugees in our own homeland. A side effect of scrip was that Canada, and later Alberta, would insist that our rights as Indigenous people had been extinguished. This meant, from the Crown's perspective, that we had no right to support ourselves as we had always done, by harvesting the wealth of our homeland, by hunting, fishing, trapping, and gathering in those same lakes and streams and woods as our grandfathers and our grandmothers did. Our way of life became a crime to them. Of course, many of us continued to harvest. No one, absolutely no one, can tell a Métis person to stay off the land. But we would harvest under a cloud. The government shamed us for just feeding our families and keeping our culture alive. They punished us as poachers. They prohibited us from being public in our pride. But we persisted. Change has come, but it took longer than expected. I know in 1982, our past leaders thought we got there when our Aboriginal rights were recognized and affirmed in the Constitution. We thought change would come immediately and our harvesting rights would be respected. That did not happen. The governments continued to deny. In 2003, the Supreme Court of Canada confirmed that Métis have halving rights in Pauli. The next year, we signed the interim Métis harvesting agreement with Alberta. That only lasted 3 years when Alberta unilaterally canceled our agreement. Alberta replaced the interim Métis harvesting agreement with a policy that artificially limited our rights, confining our harvesters to the outskirts of handfuls of settlements and towns. Much of the province was left out. Our role in identifying the members of our own community was ignored. This is when our hunt for justice began. In courtrooms and around negotiating tables, we fought for a new harvesting agreement for over a decade. This March, we got one. It is a major milestone in several respects. One, instead of the 25 small local harvesting areas, the new agreement recognizes 4 large regional harvesting areas. This means more MNA citizens will qualify as Métis harvesters, and they will be able to harvest over much larger areas. 2, Alberta now recognizes the MNA's authority to determine whether a person connects to a contemporary Métis community in Alberta. This is a recognition of the MNA's role as the representative and the government of the Métis Nation within Alberta. It gives us another tool to ensure that as many MNA citizens as possible may exercise their harvesting rights. And 3, Alberta will also recognize the MNA's authority to identify Métis harvesters. We will begin as soon as September 1st. In only a few weeks, your Métis government will be issuing cards identifying eligible harvesters, which Alberta conservation officers will accept as proof that you are rights holders. These are all significant steps forward. But like all negotiated agreements, the harvesting agreement isn't perfect. It does not yet, I say yet, recognize Métis harvesting rights in the South, in Treaty 7 territory, and some current MNA citizens may not qualify as eligible harvesters at this point. The agreement, however, commits Alberta to continuing negotiations to resolve these issues, and you heard it from the Minister this morning. These negotiations are ongoing, and we will never stop pushing until the rights of every MNA citizen is recognized across the province. The other major unresolved issue with the Government of Alberta is consultation. We continue to push Alberta to fulfill its constitutional obligations and adopt a policy that requires full and fair consultation and accommodations with the Métis Nation within Alberta. Now that our harvesting agreement is in place, I think we are closer than ever. After the signing of our MNA Canada consultation agreement, we now have signed regional consultation protocol agreements with all 6 regions and have consultation coordinators in regional offices. The next logical step is for Alberta to work with the MNA and adopt a consultation policy that respects our governance structures and meets the needs of our citizen. This is a top priority for the year to come, and once again, we have already brought it to the attention, as you heard this morning, to the new Indigenous Relations Minister. Our other major accomplishment this year, of course, was the signing of the Métis Government Recognition and Self-Government Agreement. It is not an exaggeration to say that this is something we have been working towards for 90 years. It is awe-inspiring to reflect on how far we have come. Colonization pushed the Métis Nation to the geographic margins of Canadian society, but legally, we were forced to the margins as well. No government, neither provincial nor federal, wanted anything to do with the Métis. The province said we were Indians and a federal problem. Canada said that our rights, if we had ever had any, were extinguished and that we were not their responsibility. This went on for decades. Courts have called it the political football, the buck passing, a jurisdictional wasteland, a legal lacuna. And however it is described, one thing is certain. It was a shameful chapter in Canadian history. The Crown turned its back on one of Canada's founding people. When the MNA was founded in 1928, the goal was clear: to build a stronger Métis Nation embracing Métis rights. At the time, our survival as a nation depended on the MNA's success. No existing government, provincial or federal, cared to address the needs of Métis in the province. We Métis needed to look after ourselves. We had a right to do so, and we weren't afraid to take our own future in our own hands. We began to build then by our past leaders and citizens, and we continue today. With the signing of our self-government agreement, this is where we're at today. Canada has finally recognized our right to self-government. I have always believed that once we get recognition right, everything else will fall into place. Now, I believe we are well on our way. Our self-government agreement does two very important things. It provides for upfront recognition, and second, it guarantees a clear path forward. By signing the self-government agreement, Canada recognized what we have always known to be true. The Métis Nation in Alberta has an inherent and constitutionally protected right to self-government, and the MNA is mandated to implement that right. This is a dramatic shift. This is a dramatic shift for Canada, and one I know we all welcome wholeheartedly. The decades of denial are over. Finally, we can build a true nation-to-nation, government-to-government relationship. The agreement also sets out the work ahead to finally move the MNA out of the Societies Act and become enshrined in federal legislation as a modern Aboriginal government. A lot still needs to be done for this to happen. We need to negotiate a fiscal arrangement, develop a transition plan, and write the Métis laws we will rely on. Most importantly, however, we need to develop a constitution and ratify it in a province-wide referendum. I cannot count how many times at these assemblies we have been told that we need a constitution and we need to get out of the Societies Act. We have resolutions, we have position papers, we've had workshops and engagement sessions with our citizens. I believe this is the moment we have been all waiting for a long time. Thanks to everyone's hard work over the years, the way out is now wide open. To make it through that door, we need to come together like we have only a handful of times in the Métis Nation's history. This is what Riel dreamed of. We have a chance to make that dream a reality. We have continued the process since the signing. The Provincial Council has passed a motion to put a Constitution Commission in place to get the job done. We are currently advertising for commissioners. Now it is up to all of us, the citizens of the Métis Nation within Alberta, to take the reins and drive our future. We need to build a Métis government that our children and our grandchildren will be very proud of. This is an enormous task, but I know we are up to the challenge. We will be conducting consultations and engagements across the province to ensure the voice of all of our citizens are heard. We will prepare proposals that can be reviewed and debated. When the time for the referendum comes, I want to ensure that our new constitution, our new future as a nation, has your full support. We have never been closer than we are today, building a stronger Métis Nation. Embracing Métis rights is not just a dream, it's happening now, and we can do it. So please, please, come out and do your part. We all need to do it together. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for your annual report, President Poitras. I will ask you to stay. We have a raffle. And
Mr. Chair.
The first raffle will be from Shining Mountain.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, do we have a motion to accept President Poitras' annual report?
Mr. Chair. Karen Collins, Region 2, I move to accept the President's report.
Thank you.
Brian
do we have
Hamlin.
a seconder to
Brian
accept the
Hamlin,
President's
Region
report?
3.
Ken Browning, Region 6, seconds that motion.
Hey, we have a seconder. Any questions?
Questions be called. All in favor?
All in favor?
I call
Questions are
question
called.
to the motion.
Those in favor? Opposed? I declare the motion carried unanimously. Thank you, President Petra. I'd like you to stay, and we have a raffle from a basket of goodies from Shining Mountain. So if you could pull a ticket for the lucky winner. Yeah. And the winning ticket, a green ticket, is 562627. And then the next one will be a Timmy's card. And the winner for the Timmy's card is 562616. So if you have either of those numbers, please come forward and collect. So now will be time for lunch. It's 12:15. We'll be breaking for 1 hour. Before we do,
So before we break for lunch, we're actually going to say grace. And so as well, the elders will be served first, and they're in the other room as well, but you can also stay in your seats, and the youth will serve you. And then when we open it up after grace, if there's elders that are still in line, please let them in front of you. We have Norma Spicer now to say grace, and then we'll break for lunch for 1 hour.
Can I have everybody stand, please?
Attention, please. Gentlemen, ladies, can we have attention, please? Thank you.
Thank you. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. Dear Lord, we give you thanks from grateful hearts for this wonderful meal we are about to receive. Please bless this food and those who work so diligently to prepare and serve us. We acknowledge that you are here with us, and we ask that our love and our words be blessings to you in return. We know, dear Lord, that all good gifts are from you. Please let us never forget that you are our true provider. We thank you for all these blessings bestowed on us, your joy, your strength, and the love that binds and nurtures us at this, our annual Métis Assembly. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Ghost. Amen.
Okay, perfect. So it's 12:17 right now. Let's make sure we're back here in 1 hour. And please enjoy your meal and let the elders go first. Thank you.